You're listening to News Bite Scotland with Michael McEwan and Peter Newman.
Hello and welcome to another edition of News Bite Scotland. This is our take on the news for April. My name's Peter Newman, and thankfully for all of you, due to some technical issues, you will not have to suffer my face. You'll get to stare at the glaringly handsome visage of Michael McEwan, podcaster, disability rights activist, and freelance journalist. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm kind of well burnt because I went out yesterday and I forgot to put sun cream on. As you can imagine, I'm like a lobster.
Rookie error.
Yeah, so that's why Peter's not got a light on, because it doesn't make a light because I'm here.
Yeah, that's it's. I understand the weather's been pretty hot in Glasgow.
Exactly. Yeah, nice weather. Yeah, hopefully it keeps up.
Absolutely, the Highlands is also absolutely bathed in sunshine at the moment. It's pretty lovely. So let's talk about the news. I suppose in a way this is going to be one of our least diverse shows up to an extent, because really politics has been dominating the news for us over the last week. So for viewers who aren't aware, the Scottish election is taking place on May the 7th. We're recording this on April the 30th. And the last sort of 4 weeks have been dominated by stories around the elections, the rise of reform, the possible Indie majority, which looks fairly nailed on, but the potential of an SNP majority as well. So, Michael, how are you finding all the elections? Are you enjoying this and finding it not incredibly dull?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that the other day, because I thought, well, you would ask me what's my highlight of the campaign so far. I think the highlight for me, Peter, is going to the dentist and get my tooth out as well, because I don't think there was any kind of like highlights. Anyway, all joking aside, I think for me the reform has made more headlines than other parties, but I don't know if that's a political stunt for them to get everybody talking about reform at oils, just before it was every single party it's actually standing for. That's, Anasawa working together about, stuff like that, about Malcolm Offord saying he's got 5 boats and 5 houses. Wow. It's just a weird kind of campaign.
It is. So again, just for listeners that aren't as up to speed as Michael, what he's referring to is a lot of headlines that seem to have come out of the TV debates. So we've actually had 3 televised debates. The first was BBC, the second was Channel 4, the latest, which was a couple of days ago, was on STV. And from those debates, Michael's absolutely right, particularly the second one. Anna Sawa, the Scottish Labour leader, accused Malcolm Offord of being a racist. Malcolm Offord said that that was a strange response when Anas had approached him at a town hall meeting in Paisley and offered to work together to get rid of the SNP, to which John Swinney managed to create a wonderful gif by making a very shocked and surprised noise. And that who said what to whom back and forth has somewhat dominated the news. And then Michael's also referring to the last debate where Malcolm Offord was asked, the format allowed them to ask each other as candidates questions. And Malcolm Offord, in his question to Ross Greer, the co-Green leader, opened by saying, I've got 6 houses, 5 cars, 6 boats, and I paid £43 million in tax. Do you want more or less people like me in Scotland? To which Ross Greer sort of looked very confused. And in fact, you could hear him laughing and said, less? Why do you need more than 1 house? All in all, it's been a slightly... the first thing I should say is if you're interested in those debates, you can hear little short News Bite Scotland snippets all about our response to those debates on our feed. You can find them on our YouTube channel as well. We did a longer, deeper dive analysis with Professor Sir John Curtis too, who came on the show, which was really, really good, talking all about the polling and where we are in the run-up to Holyrood 2026. So that's the kind of background to what Michael's saying. Yeah, I mean, Reform have been making headlines, haven't they? And it is quite scary. I was wondering in Glasgow if you have a sense of what the rise of Reform looks like there. Glasgow's usually quite good at rejecting that sort of stuff, but is that changing now?
Yeah, I've not really heard too much down in the kind of like central belt as well, but it's actually quite scary how people is kind of thinking about what voting reform when the polling opens a week today, actually, but also as well, I don't know if you heard of this, but like there's only like 20%, 30% of young people voting in this year's election, and I think that's quite scary as well. But I'm not so sure. I haven't heard any grumblings on the streets about how many people's going to vote for Reform and all the rest of it. But yeah, it's quite scary how they've been involved in kind of like TV debates, but also other debates as well for a wee while now. So that I think it's one to watch out for and one to hide behind the kite for, in my opinion. But also what I was saying in the last kind of poll that we did after the SKV debate, if Reform gets any votes, it would be quite interesting to see what parties work with them. Now, obviously, they would have to work with each other in the Parliament, because that's the way the Parliament's kind of set up. But it's actually scary how to, it's just weird, the whole thing. But yeah.
It is, isn't it? And I think it's. I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. That there's a difficult balancing act for people to avoid. I mean, normalizing Reform, which that's the people that think we shouldn't platform people at all. However, it certainly looks as though about 1 in 5 people are going to vote for Reform. Now, I've always been quite proud that Scotland hasn't had much in the way of sort of right-wing rhetoric up here, and I think there's been a lot of political leadership around stopping things like the rise of Reform and the right-wing parties. But clearly we're part of the UK, and clearly there's a kind of seepage across the SNP leadership who have been in government for the last 20 years. But to be fair to Labour and the Greens, and actually most of the Tories in Scotland, they have kind of rejected the right-wing rhetoric. One of the reasons why Jamie Green, MSP, went across to the Lib Dems is because he felt that Russell Findlay was leading the Scottish Tories more towards that Kemi Badenoch reformy end of the party. So I think where you're starting to see that crack in political consensus is where we're starting to see Reform rising, which is really, really scary. I can absolutely see why people are scared. So for those who don't know, I've been volunteering on a political campaign, and we do speak to people on the doors, and there's the thing that is concerning me is there's certainly a shy Reform vote. There are people who are embarrassed to tell you that they're voting for Reform, which is good, except of course if they then go out and do so. You also touched on a really important issue there, which is about voter turnout. This sounds like it's going to be quite a low turnout election. And there does seem to be a concerted effort from the media in a way to kind of drive down turnout. The idea that the SNP are going to walk to a majority seems to be a way of encouraging people not to take part. And you're right, young people are not inclined to turn out, which is a real problem. And of course, it's a real problem for us. So for those who are aware, we're part of the indie radio family of shows. And there was just some polling out yesterday which suggested that young people are overwhelmingly in favour of independence. So we really desperately need to encourage and get them to turn out, because of course it's their future.
Can I just go back on the point that you made, Peter, about reform just quickly as well?
Of course.
You know, even though that people's moving from, and as far as I'm aware, that some SNP members has joined reform in Scotland as well. But like when you look at the two parties, I'm thinking like you know, the Conservative Party was bag for maybe Scotland, bag for the UK as a whole. But I think, like, when you look at the form, they're very, 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 very old school compared to the Conservative Party. I don't know if you know what I mean by that one. It's just that they're very kind of, kind of old school, the way they think, and, oh, well, I don't care about anyone else, as long as I'm fine, and I've got five boats, so I don't care who goes to food banks and all the rest of it.
No, I think you're right. It is politics as I'm all right, Jack, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. It's this. Everybody can work their way up. Nobody has structural barriers. It's just a very old-fashioned, frankly, immature way of looking at politics. It's just not how the world works. The world, not everybody can pull themselves up by their bootstraps. There are a lot of barriers, and if you're going to do anything good in politics, helping people improve their lives is obviously the right thing to do. The idea that you can just make it and buy tax cuts is just nonsense. It is that, and Malcolm Offord doesn't sail his 5 boats, 6 boats, whatever it is, on unprotected waters. He doesn't drive his 5 cars on the roads that he built. He doesn't, he's standing on the shoulder of a state who has put money together to allow him to do that. Right now, that his same thing about he built business and paid £46 million in tax. That's great. If he's paid £46 million in tax, that's fine. Although, by the way, I note that when he was asked to show his tax return yesterday, he said, "Mind your own business." So we can't actually verify that is actually true. But none of these guys were. He's merrily on the one hand citing his great education at Greenock Academy, which was a state school. He's very proud that he went to a state school. Well, that's fine, but the state paid for that school, and in actual fact, it doesn't change. His success was predicated on an awful lot of people, including NHS workers and school workers and road workers and bin men and all these other people who helped facilitate that. And so, he succeeded and that's fine. But to pull the ladder up after you is just not how societies should work. And they are pandering to people. And you see it all the time with the but he up the road gets this benefit and that's not fair. And you go, well, that's, everyone's living their own struggles. You can't see what everyone's doing. So it is an old school regime, and it's a brainless regime, in my opinion.
Just quickly as well, that for weeks I've been thinking about this, and we haven't spoken about this as well, Peter, but how can you go from the House of Lords back to the beginning? Basically, how can you go from, sitting in a massive kind of chamber, getting millions of pounds, thousands of pounds, to just being an MP? I don't know if I'm missing something here, or somebody can comment, but I just don't know how you can go like that. You can go the opposite way, yeah, but you can't go back on yourself. I don't think.
No, I suppose it depends what your ultimate aim is. I do wonder whether, Offord's looking for power, isn't he? And you do wonder whether he's actually going to to be able to gain that. I suspect he won't be. And I mean, more importantly, there definitely is a route for reform to sort of put Anna Sawar in Butte House. But even if they do, trying to hold a unionist coalition together at Holyrood, it just won't work. I mean, there is very little policy common ground between Reform, the Lib Dems, the Tories, and Labour. You know, to be honest, they might conspire together, and it's just about conceivable. I think if things break well for all of them, that they'll have more than the SNP's seats. But even accepting that, once they actually get him into Butte House, how can he possibly govern with that coalition? There would be almost no. I think we would be back in another election within 3 months, because it just wouldn't. They just don't have any common ground. I mean, to be honest, and if that happens, I think the SNP will be in the strongest position ever.
Yeah, I mean, I get. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I get that. So basically, I mean, we were talking off the record the last time after the recording we joined, right? And what I was saying to you is, maybe this is a broader subject, maybe for after the election, depends who gets in, right? But obviously the vote for independence is strong, right? We've known that for about 5 years now, maybe more than that, right? So see if Labour does get in, or the Conservatives, even though Russell Fundy says no way in hell I'm getting in, but I can't believe it. But if one of the unionist parties gets in, right, they then have to govern Scotland, but also toe the party line with Westminster, i.e., if they want to do something different, well, that's fine and well, but they've got to go back to their bosses at Westminster to say, we're thinking about doing this in Scotland, we must be right. And so even though they might not believe in what they're doing, they still got to toe kind of like the party line, where I think the SNP, that kind of like splits maybe the SNP and the Green Party kind of like apart, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I think what you're identifying is absolutely spot on. What you've got there is the fundamental flaw at the heart of devolution.
Yep.
Which is that devolution works on the concept that we're not separate countries. In reality, it works on the idea that it's like a regional development fund. And when they set it up, when Blair's government set it up and put the D'Hondt system of voting in place in order to stop the SNP ever having a majority, the idea was exactly that we're one country, but that the regions, and that's how it was seen, it was described as regional power, would make it like tailor it to your specific needs. The easiest way to think about it, of course, is that they offered the same thing to Newcastle in the northeast, right? Which shows you exactly how they think. You know that kind of classic of when it used to be called North Britain when they were talking about Scotland. That's the thinking, right? So if you accept that that's the mindset, right? Devolution actually does make a lot of sense, because it's the idea of, well, you can personalize it for your region in the same way as you'd have a regional development board in Cornwall or in the southeast of England, and then it's fine because we're all one country. The point is, though, we're not one country. That's where it all comes apart, right? So our culture and our law and our schooling and actually our belief in healthcare and all that sort of stuff is actually wildly different. And what devolution has done has completely shown those fault lines and actually has then accelerated it, because actually either side of the debate that you're on, say you're an arch unionist and the SNP have failed Scotland and blah, 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 then you're looking over the border and saying, well, we should be doing that, right? Or if you're a pro-indie person and you're looking over the border and going, well, I wouldn't trade for the school system, I wouldn't trade for the health, I wouldn't trade for the, whatever, and I want control over immigration, right? So you're looking at all of that and going, well, actually, it's because we're a different country. And so it can't work. The Unionist Party can't work in Holyrood for exactly that reason, that they can't tie it together because they're constantly, because they're branch offices. Like, I know in the indie movement we call them branch offices as an insult, but the thing is, they literally are. You know, the Lib Dems print their leaflets in England and then bring them up here and then wang Scottish on the top of it, right? That they are branch offices, and in fact, the people who call them branch offices are their own party members in London. So, if anyone is going to topple the SNP really in Scotland, and I'm not taking credit for this point, this is an argument that the Holyrood Sources podcast make. It's actually not Jeff Aberdeen; it's the other guy. Who used to work for Andy McEwan, yeah, he used to work for the Tories. And he points out that the party that topple the SNP in Scotland will probably be a centre-right party, but they will certainly be a Scotland-only party, right? Because otherwise your policy agenda will always be the tail wagging the dog from Westminster. So you're highlighting something that's absolutely right. That's that fault line smack through the middle of devolution.
Yep. No, exactly. And you could say the same about the Green Party as well, Peter.
Absolutely. No, you absolutely can. So, you know, the Green Party was a UK-wide party, and they split about 10, 15 years ago. Now, ironically, they're probably, in this election, they're the one party who are standing to make a bump because of what's happening in England. You're getting the mirror image of what's happening with Labour. But, of course, Ross Greer and Gillian Mackay are both running an independent party, so they don't have to adhere to what's going on in Westminster. So in this context, this one is slightly unfair to them. By the way, I should also apologise. I kept getting Gillian Mackay's name wrong when we did our leaders, but I kept calling her Gillian Martin, so mea culpa, my fault.
Yeah, maybe that's why your camera's not working, Peter.
I'm being punished.
Yeah.
Being punished for my inaccuracy. I don't know. Are there any other, in terms of major events or major kind of news stories, Michael? Have you got anything else that you think we would cover this month? It has been very election dominated, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, obviously, obviously the World Cup, and we'll speak about it near the time, but obviously it's been dominated by because the cost of living crisis is happening, but it doesn't seem to bother America because the prices for the tickets are very, very steep and to get out there. But I think that's the only main kind of story. But another one in the sporting sense is the Commonwealth Games is in Glasgow. But I think it's all. I mean, I think when we have that first next Friday out the way, then we can return to. I was going to say return to business as normal, but I think it's going to take a few weeks to settle down, because a lot of people don't know that when the election takes place and the winning party, then they have to decide who's the presiding officer, and I think that's going to take about 2-3 days for the votes as well, and then the next week, then the politics might kick off, but I'm not sure. What about you up north, Peter? So
I think you're right. I'm going to bring you back to some sport in a minute for when we do our next thing. I've actually got a little surprise for you on the podcast. My media accreditation has come through for the count in the Highlands, so I'm actually going to be at the count centre as the results for Inverness Inverness, and then Caithness, Sutherland and Ross, and Skye, Lochaber and Badenoch are actually coming in. And I'll be there also for the regional count as well. So we'll have all of the Highlands and Islands, all the way from Argyll across to Elgin, Murray, all the way up to the islands. So I will be able to file some reports for the News by Scotland podcast live from the count centre, which I thought you might be pleased about.
That's amazing. Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
You're listening to News Bite Scotland with Michael McEwan and Peter Newman.
So this is a Highland news story. Michael, are you aware of a place called Invergordon? Have you ever come across Invergordon?
I've heard of it. I've never been there. Yeah.
Oh, you've missed out. It's an absolute treat. But one of the things, so a lot of cruise ships dock in Invergordon, and it needs a lot of doing up, really. But interestingly, there is a bust. It's actually a figure. It's a head, like sits a statue of somebody called Sir John Gordon. And that's who the town of Invergordon was named after, was the Gordon family. And Invergordon Naval Museum and Heritage Centre is apparently trying to put a bid together because Highland Council have been looking after this bust of Sir John Gordon. It's been valued at, how much would you pay for a sculpture for your desk, do you think, Michael?
Oh, I haven't got the pound shop. No, I'm not so sure. I haven't got any kind of things on my desk. It's worth of value. Maybe just a pen and a notepad. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, so Invergordon Town Council bought the sculpture for £5 in 1930, and then it got sort of shunted out to an industrial estate. And it was kind of just very much forgotten about. Sir John Gordon was actually an MP in 1742, apparently, and it was a feature of the Invergordon Castle. It survived a fire in the 19th century, so we got this for £5. Well, it's certainly increased in value since the £5 because it's now looking to be sold for £3.1 million.
Ooh. I think we're in the wrong job, Peter.
I think we're in the wrong job too. And the £3.1 million will go directly to the town centre. And although I actually like Invergordon very much, it could do with some sprucing up. So 3.1 million would go a long way. So good luck to the Inverness Naval and Maritime Museum. See if they can put that bid together, because that would be very, very good news.
You're listening to News Bite Scotland with Michael McEwan and Peter Newman.
In terms of other news stories, obviously the main things in the UK have mainly been about Starmer and Mandelson. So actually direct kind of responses to Scotland have been pretty small. But I did think it was, I wanted to bring you on to some sport because Michael, for those who don't know, is our sort of resident sporty expert. I used to be a sports journalist, but I haven't done very much of that recently. So I wanted you to talk me through the Scottish Premiership because I'm told it's still very exciting.
Oh, yeah. That's one of these ones where put your seat belts on for the next few weeks because we're coming up to the end of the season. So as we're recording today, as Peter was saying, on the 30th of April, the big game this weekend, it's Hibs against Celtic on Sunday, and on Monday night, it's a lot of people might say it's a weird night to have a game, but it's because it's bank holiday Monday. It's a UK holiday, so it's Hearts against Rangers at Tynecastle Park on Monday night, and it's a 5:30 kickoff. So yeah, it's heating up. It's heating up. We're in the last furlong of the season. 4 weeks to go before we'll find out, and we still don't know who's going to win the league. It's all kind of like in the balance.
So last time I checked, Hearts were still on top by 3 points. Is that right?
Yeah.
So come on, let's see how your prediction is. How's your do you reckon are they gonna hold on?
Well, okay, I'm gonna take my my bias cap off and put on my journalism hat if I can find it, because it's been a while. I'm not gonna keg on here. But yeah, I think it'd be good for Scottish football because everybody is talking about Scottish football because for years it's always been about Celtic, Rangers, Celtic, and also in previous seasons we know who's going to win the league by now, because either Celtic or Rangers kind of like run away with the title. But because it's right tight at the moment, we do not know. I mean, Hearts have still got to play Rangers, and they've got to come to Celtic Park in the last game of the season. And next weekend, it's the big Old Firm derby in Glasgow. It's Celtic against Rangers, and something's got to give there. Now, I think that if Rangers either, I think they've got to win this weekend, because if they don't win, I think that's them out of the title race, Peter. I think it's because a straight out shootout between Hearts and Celtic to see who wins the league.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I do think, and I'm certain you're right, that would be good for Scottish football. 84-85 was the last time a non-Old Firm side won the league. So, I mean, 41 years surely is enough.
Yeah, no, but I do think that, like, see, I do I do think obviously Hearts would be a bit disappointed if he come this far and not win the league, but if they don't win the league, it's still a good achievement for Scottish football because, as you know, as well as I do, the league in Scotland has always been a two-horse race. Since I've ever been on the earth, it's always been, Celtic Rangers, Rangers Celtic, right? And they always run away with, 15 points, 20 points, and people call it like a Mickey Mouse league, but I don't think you can call it a Mickey Mouse league this season, Peter, because nobody knows where it's going to go. I mean, nobody was expecting Motherwell to go to Ibrox last weekend and beat them 3-2. And Celtic's been shaky the last couple of weeks. In fact, mostly the season, and yet they're still in the title race. So it's quite weird, and good for people who don't really keep up to date with Scottish football. Celtic's had 4 managers this season. They've had Martin O'Neill coming in twice as a caretaker manager. They had Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic at the beginning of the season, and then they had Wilfred Nancy coming in from the MLS soccer. So, I mean, I don't think that's ever been done before, Peter, like a manager, so that team that's been managed by 4 different managers to win the league. So, and then you've always got these kind of plot stories as well. So, yeah, who knows? Who knows? It's wonderful. It's brilliant for Scottish football, and everybody's talking about it, Peter, and that's a good thing.
It absolutely is a good thing. I think, it's got to be. I wanted to just do a little link, really. So regular listeners of News Bite Scotland will know that we like to cover events as well that are coming up in the month. And we've got a few of those I'd like to tell you about, but a little link with the sport. This month also sees the Melrose Sevens. So that's 7-a-side rugby. Melrose is one of the all-time kind of Borders most famous rugby locations in the world. It's taking place 22nd and 23rd of March. And it's a really good opportunity to, if you're anywhere near the Central Belt, get down to the Borders, get down there for a couple of beers, watch some rugby, and it's always a good day out. Well, actually, I must say I've actually never been, so it's where I'm told it's a great day out. I would absolutely love to go. And like Michael said earlier, it's after the election, so I think I can start resurfacing and functioning in the real world again. So if I can, I'm going to get down to that. And in terms of other events coming up, there's quite a lot of interesting kind of cultural things. So the Shetland Folk Festival starts today, actually, and runs till the 3rd of May. So there's 4 days of live music in the Shetland Islands. Orkney's Folk Festival is the same. It runs at the end of the month. So that's the 31st to the 24th. So lots of trad music there. The 30th of May sees the Highland Gathering, which is in Inverness, and that's a whole bunch of kind of local stuff. More local to you, Michael, there's the Edinburgh Trad Fest, which is traditional folk music, storytelling, dance in Edinburgh. The 9th of May, that Trad Fest is 1st to the 11th, so it kicks off tomorrow. The Edinburgh Tartan Parade on May the 9th is pipes, drums, marchings, and it's celebrating Edinburgh's 900th anniversary. Who knew?
Oh, wow. Yeah, never knew that. Yeah.
No idea. So that they should all be quite good fun.
Yeah, and let's hope the weather's nice like today.
Absolutely. You're going to be doing some work around. So you mentioned the Commonwealth Games earlier. So that's the 23rd of July until the 2nd of August that Glasgow. You're doing some work around that, aren't you?
Yeah. So I'm in the process of waiting to hear if I get media accreditation for the Commonwealth Games, and if we do, then it'll be highly remiss for me not to cover for Newsbite Scotland some of it. So I'm just waiting to find out about that. So I should hear, and then it's go a couple of weeks or so, because I think the deadline was last Friday. So here's fingers and all that crossed for that one, because it'll be a good event. High profile event, but just to let people know as well, the Commonwealth Games was meant to be in Victoria this year in Australia, but they went bankrupt, so they kindly gave it to Scotland as well. So yeah, there's not going to be the whole lot of catalogue of sports that you get at the Commonwealth Games. It's going to be a cutback in the sports, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Seeing some sport in action, and people coming from all over the Commonwealth to Scotland.
Yeah, it should be really exciting, shouldn't it? And I'm delighted that you're going to be able to record some content for Newsbite Scotland while you're there.
Yeah, I am. Yep. I will find out, hopefully, as I say again, in a few weeks' time. And also, one thing connected to the Commonwealth and one kind of political thing, maybe we've not got time to go on to in this one, but there's been a lot of talk about what's the point in the Commonwealth Games now, because obviously what happened to Victoria, and obviously Victoria's a big city and all that, and they went bankrupt and all the rest of it. Could this be the last ever Commonwealth Games? I'm not so sure. I don't want to think that, because Commonwealth Games are good, Peter. You get Team Scotland and all the home nations competing against each other, and that's what kind of like makes it a wee bit different from the Olympic Games. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I think it would be really sad actually to see the end of the Commonwealth Games. It was a bit of a tragedy what happened in Victoria, really, wasn't it? It was they weren't ready.
You're listening to Newsbite Scotland with Michael McEwan and Peter Newman.
I'm quite conscious that we're rounding the headland of this month's Newsbite Scotland, Michael. We're sort of getting ready to shut our jaws, I think, and clamp ourselves shut.
By the way, I was just going to say that could buy Malcolm Offord another 10 speedboats, maybe.
I dread to think. I don't know why you need 6 boats. How many? Presumably he's got one per house. He's a very strange little man. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us on Newsbite Scotland. Remember, you can access Newsbite Scotland on our YouTube channel, which fairly unimaginatively is at Newsbite Scotland. You can find us on Twitter, where we are Newsbites Scott. You can find Michael. Michael, what's your handle on Twitter?
Oh, yeah. I should know that. It's Mighty Boy 83.
That sounds right. I'm at PAJ Newman. You can follow us. You can find this on all of your podcatchers, good and bad. And yeah, we are going to finish taking a bite out of the news there. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for your company, Michael.
Yeah, no bother. Thanks, Peter. I'm looking forward to seeing your camera on the next time.
Yeah, I'll try and fix the tech for next time.